Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here. It's running the 4-game NBA main set on Friday. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports, daily fantasy sports slates. Before we get into the analysis, I do want to thank you guys again for all support. Currently at 4.35 thousand subscribers now on YouTube, so my goal is to try to hit 5K by the end of the month. The easiest way to support me, guys, is make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell, just so you know when I upload videos, you know when I go live. I usually go live 30 to 40 minutes before a lock on my YouTube channel. Also, if you cannot watch the YouTube videos, I do also upload on Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description below. It's just the DK DFS show. But with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So before we get into the breakdown here for Friday's slate, what we can do is look back at my lineup here from Thursday. So Thursday's slate, right now it's looking really ugly. Just the first 3 games in general, not a lot of, it's going to be a pretty low scoring night unless this last game just goes crazy, which is possible. But yeah, let's go over it. So Harden, I'll get to that tilt in a sec. Dennis Schroeder, James Ennis, Anthony Davis, Steven Adams, Markelle Fultz, Gary Clark, and Whiteside. I mentioned, the Aaron Gordon news was obviously huge. I banked on the fact that he wasn't going to play. He did not, so I want the value there. Fultz, solid, 24 at, 4.5. James Ennis, 25 at 4K. And then Gary Clark, 3.3K, 18.75. Nothing amazing, but it allowed me to get to Harden, to AD, who I really wanted because I love their upside. And then James Harden goes and gets 2 field goals in the first half, with no Russell Westbrook in the playoffs. I had to turn the game off, guys. I was watching it for a bit. I couldn't watch it anymore. I was getting so pissed. Harden, I've never seen this Harden. He was just he was giving the ball up like almost every time. And when he did drive, he would make a nice move. Instead of shooting, kick it out to someone for a wide open 3 every single time they missed. Like, no joke. I don't think I ever saw him kick it out to someone and them actually make a shot. But when Harden did not have the ball, when someone else had the ball and they pass it, they just drained the 3. It's like Harden just could not get an assist to buy his life. He still finished with 9. He could have had way more. Yeah, that really, really surprised me. Him 50 fantasy points with no Russell Westbrook. I thought 60 was his floor. That really was a big shock. Yeah, Schroeder, I mentioned, him, SGA as buy low candidates after they struggled. I want Schroeder. Unfortunately, it was SGA that finally came out of nowhere and had a good game. CP3 really struggled. It was just an ugly slate. No one really had a great game, at least the first 3 games. And then again, I mentioned the Orlando value. Steven Adams had a nice start there, kind of cooled off at the end. Just hit value, nothing crazy. I played Whiteside and Anthony Davis in the late game, so we'll see how it goes. I'm probably going to need a big game from both for me to cash in the tournament. I played really light, though. I only played $60. This was just a slate that I didn't have a good feel on. Giannis, I don't even think went crazy. I think he got over 60, but it wasn't an enormous game from him. And then I do want to mention the Bam Adebayo. That really, really surprised me because I know a lot of people played him, and I liked him a good amount. I'm not BSing you guys. I liked Bam Adebayo a lot. I didn't play him, but if I was going balanced approach, I was going to play one of either Bam or Jimmy. Jimmy was okay. Bam got in a little bit of foul trouble in the first quarter, and then just couldn't find his rhythm. I didn't get to see the whole game, but that really, really surprised me. I think he only finished 25 fantasy points. I did mention Duncan Robinson as a potential value. He had a really, really good shooting day, but don't think we're going to get I think he shot 7 of 8, so I'll probably pass on the slate on Saturday on him because I think the ownership will be inflated. But yeah, that's a look back, really. Just a really kind of ugly first 3 games. I think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring night. So hopefully AD and Whiteside can bring me to the promised land. Not looking great, though, right now with Harden's performance. So, all right, let's go over the Vegas odds here for these games. So Toronto, Brooklyn, it's a 220.5 over under. Toronto are 10.5 point favorites. Denver, Utah, it's a 218.5 over under. Denver, 1.5 point favorites. Celtics, 76ers is a 216 over under. Boston are 5 point favorites. Clippers, Mavs. It's a 232.5 over under late night hammer here. Clippers are 5-point favorites there. So let's get into the analysis here. We'll start with center, and at the top is Joel Embiid. Still tilting from the other day when that game blew out because, Embiid was somewhat high owned, but those Boston guys were really low owned and missed out in the final 6 minutes. Joel Embiid, he was on pace to play about 40 minutes. If he plays those last 6 minutes, he probably pushes for 65 fantasy points. He was having a really, really solid day. Philly just not looking good, though. So there's, what's the line in this one? 5 points. I don't think we can really expect a blowout again, but the Philly's really been struggling. I expect another really big game from Joel Embiid here. So he's someone that I'm certainly looking to at under 10K. Jokic is at 9.3. He also had a really good game, but the game blew out. In 32 minutes, he went for 51 fantasy points, whereas you kind of had Jamal Murray take a back seat offensively. Jokic, back-to-back 50 fantasy point games. I know that first one did go to OT. This one's tricky. With him and Joel Embiid as the top centers, it's close for me now. The matchup isn't as good for Jokic, but he has still had really good games against Gobert in the past. So this one is really, really close for me if you're going to make me pick between Embiid and Jokic. I think both are certainly in play. So might be a game time decision there with which one I go to. I still think Embiid has a little bit more upside, and just because his team's struggling, like they're going to depend on him a little bit more. Porzingis is at 8.5. This is an interesting, low-owned play. He's kind of struggled last game. 36 minutes, only 34 fantasy points. Definitely more of a floor game for his standards. I think the ownership is going to drop on him a lot. I mean, it wasn't too high on the last game anyway. He's been dealing with that heel bruise. I don't mind him. I think I would probably just rather pay the extra couple thousand for Luka, who's looked really, really solid in this series so far. So let's move on. Gobert's at 7.4. I don't think he really has that upside. We really need like a 5-block game and like a couple steal game from Rudy Gobert to really have that massive upside. So I don't want to rely on that. I mean, we'll get that from him probably once every 10 games. So I just would rather get to the better offensive centers for more, right? Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic. Jarrett Allen at 7.1. He played 41 minutes the last game. So if we get 40 minutes from Jarrett Allen again, he's viable even in a bad spot. I mentioned, Marc Gasol, solid defender. Ibaka is still a pretty solid defender, I would say. So it's not necessarily the best matchup. But if we're gonna get 40 minutes out of Jarrett Allen, then yes, he is in play here in the mid range. The offense is literally just Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, pick and rolls. We also have no Joe Harris. He's going to be out for a couple games. He left the bubble, so there's potential for Brooklyn value for sure, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I think Allen's fine there in the mid-range. I'm not going to get to Horford even at 6.2. Ibaka, Gasol's at 4K. He's really looking like a shell of his former self. Ibaka's at 5.3. Ibaka's a guy that has a little bit more upside, but still, you're not really getting him at a huge discount for a guy that's going to play 25-ish minutes. Avicii Zubac's at 4.4. The minutes went down in him, which is concerning. We saw a lot more minutes from Montrezl Harrell, who's at 4.1 now. Hasn't really been great in those minutes, right? 15 minutes, 8 fantasy points, 22 minutes, 11 fantasy points. But the price has dropped at him. Now to a playable price tag, in my opinion, at 4.1K. If we get 25 minutes out of Montrezl Harrell here, I think he's actually a pretty solid value play. And maybe goes overlooked because people just look at those box scores and see 8 and 11 fantasy points. But we know, like Montrezl Harrell is a pretty solid point per minute guy. And if we get 25 minutes out of him at 4.1, and the highest over under of the day, I have interest in him as value for sure. Again, Gasol, he actually did pick up ownership the last game. He'll be super, super low owned. I still don't even know if I can do it. I would just rather get to Montrez personally. Now, Maxi Kleba at 3.9 is viable punt. Played 33 minutes, even alongside Kristaps Porzingis. So they're using him out there more for his defense. But if we get, again, 30-plus minutes out of a guy at under 4K, of course he's in play for value. There are a couple other plays I want to mention here. So Kurucs has only played 16 minutes in the last 2 games. I think those minutes go up on him with no Joe Harris. Potentially Tyler Johnson too. So I'm probably interested in whoever does pick up the start for Joe Harris. I'd assume it'd be Kurucs, but you never know. So I want to keep an eye on the starting lineup. But Yeah, that's huge minutes. Like Joe Harris was playing 35 minutes. Those minutes have to go somewhere. So the Brooklyn value definitely gets a big boost. Cantor, I was one game early on my potential Cantor play. I mentioned him in the first game. I even want like an in-depth breakdown. I was like, man, Cantor, like he gets the minutes against Philly. I think he's a viable punt option. He only played 8 minutes the first game. I get off him. The next game he plays 22 and goes for 23 fancy points. Just the way it works in DFS. Can we trust Brad Stevens is the question. I still think there's like maybe a 5% chance he just DNPs because it's Brad Stevens and he hates playing Cantor. But yeah, if I knew Cantor was going to play 20 minutes again, I would really like him at 3-7. Can we trust that, though? We did only see 2 centers. We only saw Tyson Cantor, whereas the first game we saw a 3-headed monster of Tice Cantor and Robert Williams. So if we only get those 2 centers again, then I think Cantor is definitely a viable punt. It just makes me a little bit uneasy because Brad Stevens does not like playing him. Now, I got to mention Boban because I actually think he is still in play. If we get like 12 minutes out of Boban Marjanovic at 3.4K, I mean, we're not going to get 2.5 fancy points a minute like we did that last game in 10 minutes, 25 fancy points. But like 12 minutes out of Boban could definitely get you 20 fancy points. So I actually think he is in play as a really cheap option. I'm not going to get to Plumlee or Tony Bradley. They're not getting enough minutes for me to consider them. And that's really it. Let me check. Sorry guys, I'm double checking the Portland starting lineup. They still haven't released it just because I'm playing the showdown slate. Huh. Okay. Well, I'll try to keep an eye on this last 10 minutes because that locks in 10. Let's move on to power forward. So we have Jason Tatum at the top of 9K. I mentioned really liking those Boston guys last slate. I like them again this slate. The prices didn't move, and again, we missed out on big minutes from those Boston starters, at least 6. Tatum played 41 in the first game, only 31 last game. So, yeah, I really like him with no Gordon Hayward. The upside is really high in these guys, and the price tag did not move. So, I have a good amount of interest in Tatum. I like Brown. I like Kemba. We'll get to them too. Tobias Harris, Philly has really been struggling. Tobias has to pick it up if they want to have a chance in this series. I think he's got to be more aggressive offensively. Only 15 of 14 shots the first couple games. Like he has got to be their number 2 guy. The upside is still there in Tobias. We know when he's shooting the ball well, he can go for 50 plus. He's going to go low owned. He's just going to fly under the radar. I don't know if I can get to him because I'm only a one lineup guy, but I don't mind getting to him as more contrarian play just because I know the ownership will not be there on him. Now, another guy that's been struggling, Siakam. You've got to think a breakout game's coming from him soon, especially in this type of match against Brooklyn. 7.3K looks so good, but going off recent play, he seems priced right. This could be where I buy into Siakam. I don't know. I definitely want some Raptors exposure. I know the risk, right? There's 100% blowout risk in this game. The first game was more how I thought it would play out, a really high-scoring game, and then the Raptors pulling away at the end. The second game was a close game and more low-scoring. That was just because no one could hit any shots there. Karis LeVert shot 5 of 22. Both teams did not shoot well. I think both teams shoot a little bit better this game, so I still think this game has the most upside. So, yeah, I have interest in Siakam. You've got to think the breakout game is coming from him soon. We really have not seen a big game from him in a while. MPJ's at 6'7". He actually played solid last game, went for 40 fancy points. I don't know. The price tag's okay, but I would probably just rather get to Siakam for a little bit more. I'm not getting to Horford. Marcus Morris is fine. He actually has played good the first couple playoff games. 32 and 35 minutes. Looks like the minutes are there for him right now. So yeah, if you get to Marcus Morris, I have no issue with that. I still don't think he's going to continue to shoot this well, but 5K, he's more than fine in the mid-range. Now we'll get to some of the Brooklyn values. So the minutes aren't going to change too much on TLC. Like TLC, Garrett Temple, they're still going to play their 35-plus minutes. We know Jared Allen's going to play almost 40. We know Karis LeVert's going to play 35-plus. Who is that last guy that's going to get the minutes? Is it going to be Kurucs? Or is it going to be a guy like Tyler Johnson? So I think, getting whoever picks up a start there is probably the value I have the most interest in for Brooklyn because it's not really going to change the role much for TLC and Garrett Temple, right? they're going to kind of stand in the corner, shoot threes, because the offense is literally Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, pick and roll, LeVert drive, and kick. So these guys, the role is not going to change too much with Joe Harris being out, because Joe Harris was not a guy that they would just give it to him and let him work with ISO ball. Like, Joe Harris was a spot-up shooter. So I don't think the role changes too much in TLC and Garrett Temple. I'm not saying they're out of play. I mean, TLC, if he's shooting the ball well, and he's been a pretty decent shooter this series, like, yeah, he could go for easily 30-plus fantasy points. So I definitely have interest here in these Brooklyn guys. OG Anunoby's at 4.6. I think he's fine. Really hasn't done a whole lot offensively. Just kind of taking a back seat, right? 2 of 8, 2 of 6, 4 of 8, 2 of 8. He's more out there for his defense. It's a good matchup. He still can have upside games. Like, he's still a pretty good offensive basketball player. It's just he's playing alongside Lowry, Van Fleet, Siakam. So I'm okay with OG. I don't think he's the best play. I don't think he's the worst play here at 4.6. Jeremy Grant's at 4.5. The minutes went down on him, only 27 the last game. I don't think I can get to him. Millsap's out of play for me. I'm not going there. Yeah, Dorian Finney-Smith, fine for value, 30-ish minutes. He's out there for his defense. I think he's okay. I would rather get to a guy like Royce O'Neal. My issue with Royce O'Neal now, though, is the ownership's going to go way up after the last game. We do have Mike Conley coming back, too. Don't think it really hurts him too much. I think it more hurts the upside of a guy like Donovan Mitchell. It definitely hurts Jordan Clarkson. I still think we get about 35 minutes from Royce O'Neal. Again, he's not out there for his offense either, but if he gets those minutes, he can hit a couple threes. He'll get some rebounds. He'll definitely get some assists, too. So I have interest in Royce once again. I think the ownership will be up on him, which does worry me a bit. Sorry, trying to see if Portland is just not coming out with their starting lineup, huh? I assume it's going to be the same. I mean, but just weird that they haven't released it. All right, so let's see. Other options here. I mentioned Kleber. I think he's viable. He's in the same territory as Royce O'Neal, really. Both going to play 30-plus minutes. Both are not out there for their offense, but they're cheap enough, and they allow you to get those stars in your lineups. Again, Kurucs, him or Tyler Johnson, I assume, is going to be the biggest beneficiary for minutes. So, yeah, I probably have interest in whoever does start. Now, the issue with Kurucs is he has been in some foul trouble, but, yeah, I'm interested to see what Brooklyn does their starting lineup with no Joe Harris. Last guy I will mention, I mean, again, Philly's really struggled. Does Mike Scott get in the rotation here? I think there's an outside chance he could at 3-1, and he's a solid point per minute guy. It's just he's not got the minutes, right? 2 and 6 minutes. 6 minutes wasn't in the blowout there, so tricky one. This is like a 1% play. I mentioned it with Dion Waiters tonight. Looks like Dion Waiters, there was a coach, or Frank Vogel said he's going to play. So maybe Brett Brown changes things up and again, maybe gives Mike Scott minutes, but nothing I can recommend with confidence. So let's move on to small forward. Luka Doncic is at 10-8. I fell asleep in the fourth quarter of that game, but Luka was on pace to smash those first 3 quarters. So was it foul trouble? It might have been. He had 5 fouls. I didn't see the rest of that game. He did only play 28 minutes, so it had to have been foul trouble. And I probably should have looked that up before, but yeah, I like Luka quite a bit here. Again, if he didn't get in foul trouble, we would have seen 38 minutes out of him, and he was on pace to absolutely crush. The price went down on him a bit. I think Luka's your top spend up. I think he's your safest spend up too, just because he's a do-it-all guy. So even in a tougher spot, Luka's the guy for me. If you're going to spend all the way up, like I would prefer him to Kawhi, even though the price tag is definitely viable in Kawhi, and he's had 50 fantasy points in back-to-back games. I just like the upside more on Luka. And I like the upside more right below him on Tatum than Kawhi Leonard. So, not saying Kawhi Leonard is a bad play. I would just rather get to Luka for a bit more. I would rather get to Tatum for a little bit less. Paul George is at 8.3. You know, the price tag on him and Kawhi is starting, or the price gap is starting to close a bit. Now it's only, $1,300. He really struggled shooting. I don't think we're going to see 4 of 17 from him again. I think he's fine in the mid-range. Still not my favorite play, but he's not out of play. Again, no Gordon Hayward. That's obviously the big news. That's why I like these Boston guys, Kemba, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. They missed out in the last 6 minutes, which really tilted me that other slate because they're all low-owned. Joe Ingles at 5.7. Yeah, with Conley coming back, that kind of caps his upside a bit. He won't have the ball in his hands as much now. I think he's okay, but probably not going to prioritize him in this one. THJ's at 5.2. It's just, he's too scoring dependent for me. he has to hit his threes. The upside is there when he's knocking them down. Like, he can go for 30 plus, but I just don't like playing a guy that's really relying on threes. Garrett Temple, like I mentioned with TLC, I don't think the role changes with him too much. I think he's fine at 5'1", but I think that the biggest beneficiary is whoever does pick up a start for Joe Harris. We know Temple's been starting, TLC's been starting, Allen's been starting, LeVert's starting. Who starts for Joe Harris? I think is the guy that I have the most interest in. Now, Josh Richardson's at 4'8". I think that's too cheap. This is kind of just a price point thing for him. Only played 29 because of the blowout. He was on pace for about 35 minutes. I think it's pretty solid for a guy that's gonna run the point a good amount too. Secondary plays, these guys have to step up if they want a chance in the series. Josh Richardson is one of those guys. Like, he's a good defender. He can knock down shots. Like, I have interest in Josh Richardson here at 4'8". Norman Powell, the minutes are just... He played 17 the first game and then 32 the second game. Now, I think he played 32 because he was just shooting lights out, 11 of 17. I think normally we get somewhere in between those 32 and 17, I think like 25. So Powell's not out of play because when he's shooting well, we saw the upside there. 37 fantasy points is a good matchup. So I think like of those small forwards, like OG might be your cash play just because he's going to play more minutes. Whereas Powell is probably your GPP play, probably has a little bit more upside. Thibault, I made the mistake of playing him last slate. 5 fantasy points, only 25 minutes. Yeah, again, that was a mistake on my part. There was other value I should have got to. I should have rearranged my lineup. I should have got to Clarkson at last slate, not even trying to be results-oriented. That was a mistake on my part. I'm not going to him at 3-6. I'm not going to Torrey Craig either. He's like the exact same player as Thibault. Strictly out there for his defense. It does absolutely nothing. All right, let's move on to shooting guard. So Donovan Mitchell's at 9-4. I know he's been playing out of his mind. That 43 fantasy point game, 81 or 43 minute 81 fantasy point game, and he had a really quiet start the first half, but picked up in the third quarter. Finished with a decent outing for him, 34 minutes, 46 fantasy points. I'm just not paying 9-4 for him. There's just, in my opinion, there's just no way. LeVert is below him. I love the upside more in LeVert. I like Fred VanVleet a lot more. I like Kyle Lowry a lot more. I like Luka more if you're going to want to get to above him. So Donovan Mitchell is just a full fade for me. If he goes out and continues to play this well and continue to shoot this well, 19 of 33, 10 of 14, then I'm just going to lose. But I am not paying 9-4 for Donovan Mitchell when Mike Conley is back too. So that's my take. If Donovan Mitchell continues to shoot lights out, then so be it, but I'm just not doing it. Like, LeVert is my guy at 8-1. Man, was that last slate, again, the Philly-Boston blowout, and then LeVert shooting 5 of 22. 5 of 22, guys. He was on pace for 70 fantasy points. He just completely could not hit a shot in the second half. Oh, man, I'm still not over it because he was like 20% owned. Yeah, I love LeVert. The risk is clear here, and it's the blowout, which is 100%. It's even better chance it blows out now with no Joe Harris. Only 10.5 point spread, but if this game stays close, I don't think we're going to get a 104-99 game. I think we get somewhere between upwards of probably like a 230 over under. If these guys can actually hit their shots. So LeVert's a guy I absolutely love. I know the risk. I know the blowout risk. If the game blows out, then I'm screwed. But I am going back to the wall of Caris LeVert here because the upside is absolutely enormous. I do not expect him to shoot 5 of 22 again. And he's probably going to have to shoot a little bit more even with Joe Harris out. So I love LeVert here at 8-1. He's probably my favorite play of the day. Fred VanVleet, I've played him the last 2 slates. He has been money for me. 39 minutes. 60 fantasy points, 43 minutes, 49 fantasy points. Like, he's a guy that will play basically the whole game. The price did not move. What I'm worried about is the ownership. I think the ownership is going to go up now after those 2 games, but I still like Fred VanVleet. And I might just play Fred VanVleet and Caris LeVert again for the 3rd straight time, but them together. Yeah, I like Fred VanVleet a lot once again. The risk, like I mentioned with LeVert, is that they just see limited minutes. They don't see the 4th quarter run because Toronto maybe just blows them out. Jaylen Brown's at 7-2. I like his upside too at this price. He wasn't on pace for a huge game, but if he plays those final 6 minutes, you know, I still guess, the Mets went down on some of these on these Boston guys. I guess it was because the bench was playing better, but he was only on pace for 34 minutes, where he's played 39 the last game. So probably if Philly is in the lead, then these Boston guys get more run. Like Brown, Tatum, Kemba all probably push for over 35 plus. With a big piece like Gordon Hayward out of the lineup, these guys just have to do more offensively. So I like Jaylen Brown. I think he goes a little bit under the radar. But you can definitely make a really nice balanced lineup here with start your lineup like LeVert, Fred VanVleet, and Jaylen Brown. I think it looks really solid. I played all 3 of those guys last slate. I might play all 3 of them again, dependent. But then I couldn't get to guys like Luka and Embiid, so gonna have to make some tough choices here. But yeah, I like those 3 guys. Those 3 guys in the 7 to 8K range. I love their upside. LeVert, Fred VanVleet, and Jaylen Brown. Lou Williams, I like quite a bit once again at 5'6". I was all over him last slate. He went for 32 minutes and 39 in fantasy points. It's just a minutes thing with him, right? Because he was only playing 20, 25-ish minutes. Now he's getting over 30. And the price is not moving. So, sure, I know there's a lot of mouths to feed. Kawhi, Paul George, Zubac, Montrezl Harrell. But it's just a price point thing with him. I really like the price at 5'6" if he's going to continue to play over 30 minutes. I like Lou Williams quite a bit as well. Now, Clarkson's going to be a pass to me with Mike Conley coming back. Just too scoring dependent for me, and I think he's not going to play huge minutes. This is a pass. The price is coming up. I'm fine getting away from Clarkson. I'm not going to play Marcus Smart even at 5'4". I get to Marcus Smart when Kemba is out and he runs the point, because his upside is way higher when he runs the point. When he runs the off guard, it's just not for me. Alec Burks, I don't know what Brett Brown's doing. Only played 6 minutes in that first half. He was really solid that first game too. 28 minutes, 28 fantasy points, and then comes out and barely plays his second game. I mean, the price did drop to 4-1, but right now I just think it's too hard to trust what Brett Brown's going to do. The upside is if I knew Alec Burks was going to play close to 30 minutes, I would love him at 4-1. I don't know what Brett Brown's going to do here. So that's a really risky play. You can go back and hope he gets the minutes, but don't know right now. Seth Curry's at 3.9. I think he's fine. Probably a guy that's going to play 25-ish minutes. The thing with him, though, is he kind of does have to knock down those threes. Now, he's a good shooter, but the floor is low on him if he's not hitting the threes. Right? The Phoenix game only shot the ball 3 of 9, 11 fantasy points. So price point, it makes him in play, but he's got to hit his threes. That about wraps it up for shooting guard. So let's finish it up with point guard today. Mentioned really liking Luka if you can get to him at the top. Again, Donovan Mitchell's a full fade for me. Kyle Lowry at 7.8. He actually intrigues me here because it's been Fred VanVleet that has had the good game in back-to-back games, whereas Lowry has just kind of been subpar. 37 and 43 fantasy points. Kyle Lowry has huge upside. When playing well, he can go for 60 in a spot like this. And I think the ownership, if people are going to play Toronto guard, they're going to go to Fred VanVleet. So I could go to Lowry over Fred VanVleet here just because it would just be an ownership thing for me. And again, we had Norman Powell shoot lights out the last game. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think a little bit more usage to those point guards for Toronto with Lowry and Fred VanVleet. So it'll be a game time call there, on which Toronto guard I'm going to go with. I think Fred VanVleet will be a lot higher owned. But I might go to Lowry just because of the ownership. I think the ownership will drop on him. Jamal Murray's at 7K. It's tricky because his floor is somewhat low for a point guard. Not a guy that's going to get huge assists. At times he can, but Jokic has the ball in his hands a lot, and they use Jokic as a point guard. So it's just a tough one. Jamal Murray is a GPP only play because his floor is kind of low, like we saw that last game, but his upside is high, like we saw 2 games ago. So the 7K price point seems about right. Yeah, I think he's fine. He's just a GPP play. I don't know if I'm going to get to him, but I think he's viable. Now, Kemba Walker intrigues me at 6'6". The price continues to drop on him. I think we probably get 35 minutes if the game stays close here. No Gordon Hayward, like 6.6K for Kemba Walker. I think that looks pretty solid. So I have interest in all three of those Boston studs that I mentioned. Mike Conley is going to be back at 5'9". I think we're going to get his normal 35-ish minutes. I think he's solid in the mid-range. I don't know he's my favorite play, but I think he's fine as like a cash game play. Right, the minutes will be there. He's a guy that'll get you assists, rebounds, and score the ball. So no real issue with Conley. I think he's just, yeah, he's fine. Again, I'm not going to get to Clarkson or Marcus Smart. Shake Milton's at 4-5. I would just rather get to Josh Richardson. I like the upside a bit more on JAYSON right now compared to Shake Milton. So not going to go to Milton. Now, Tyler Johnson, this is potential value here, right? So who is going to start along, or who's going to pick up those minutes with no Joe Harris? I think it's either Tyler Johnson or Crooks. So whoever does pick up a start, I would like quite a bit. Now, Tyler Johnson is the better player than the better fantasy player. Like if I knew Tyler Johnson was play 30 minutes at 4.2K, that looks really, really good. So I'm interested to see what they do. If they do start Crooks, I would still have interest in Tyler Johnson. I don't know if Crooks would just go out and play 35 minutes. So yeah, Monte Morris actually has been solid off the bench, 29, 23 minutes. I think he's okay for value, but I'm probably not going to do it. Trey Burke at 3.6, I'll pass. I know he had a good game last game, but not enough minutes for me to consider him. Final guy I mentioned for value is Reggie Jackson. We have Pat Bev doubtful. Reggie Jackson played 26 minutes. He started at point guard. Now, sure, he's playing alongside a lot of high-usage guys, but if we get 25 minutes out of point guard in the highest over-under game, I think Reggie is certainly in play as a punt play here. And that's really quick. Let's close out with Brooklyn again. Because, like I said, LeVert, Jared Allen, Garrett Temple, TLC. We know they're all going to play big minutes. Who is going to play for Joe Harris? I think it's Crooks or Tyler Johnson. Like, sure, Chioza might pick up a few extra minutes at 3-2, but still don't know if that would make him viable. They could throw Justin Anderson in the rotation. I don't think I would consider a guy like Lance Thomas. So they really don't have a lot of options, Brooklyn. So I think it's Tyler Johnson or Crooks. Whoever does pick up a start would become a pretty solid value play. Even if Tyler Johnson doesn't start, I think the minutes have to go up on him. I think the upside is the highest on Tyler Johnson. That's kind of my thoughts there. But yeah, don't rule out TLC and Temple either. I don't think their role changes much, but like they're going to be out there for big minutes, and they can hit their threes. The upside is there for these guys, so do not rule out TLC or Garrett Temple either. But yeah, that's really going to do it for the video today, guys. So if you have been enjoying the content so far, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a like button on the video, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell just so you know when I'm going live. I will be live streaming 30 minutes before lock on my YouTube channel, so be sure to check out the live stream, guys. I will go over everything, all the news that we have for the 4-game slate. I will give you guys a team-by-team breakdown, cash plays I'll mention, GPP plays, and then I'll give you guys a core at the end and answer any questions you have as well. So, thanks again, guys. I hope you guys all have a great night, and I will see you all tomorrow in the live stream.